Hi everybody, this is Joshua Kirk back with you guys once again on YouTube, and now it's time for episode 28 of Album of the Day, in which for today's review I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to do a review of an artist that's kind of more independent than mainstream or major, or it's definitely not really something that's on everybody's radar. Some of the reviews lately that I've done for Woco and Vampire Weekend and all that stuff, I really love the way those reviews went out, but I just had a feeling that I just wanted to do something a little different here for this review, and review an artist that not so many people are aware of necessarily, but in this video, I'm just persuading people to check out a new band because I am a pretty adventurous music person and pretty much, is always a fan of what's out there musically. In fact, I pretty much buy as much new albums every year as I can. That sounds interesting to me. Because I am a music lover, and I am probably one of the most dedicated music lovers there is out there, because I'm someone who's really adventurous and loves music and doesn't really have a music genre that dominates another. I'm just a dedicated music person who appreciates all kinds of music. So I decided to do kind of a review of an independent artist, in which the artist is from Washington, D.C., and I recently saw them during a Circus Life Live podcast event at the Hamilton in Washington, D.C., which is where the band is from. And they're called the Beanstalk Library. One of my friends, Justin Trawick, who's a musician, has a podcast with Sean Russell called The Circus Live. And they've done a couple of live podcasts, one at the Rock and Roll Hotel and the other in the Hamilton recently, which is where I saw this band play. And I'll tell you, they're amazing live. They're one of the bands that are great on album, but even better when you put them on stage. So they're called the Beanstalk Library, and I'm going to review their most recent album, which was released June 18th, 2013. I believe this is when it was released, but anyway, the album is called The View From Here, and this is not on a record label because this is an independent artist, and obviously there are some independent artists that are signed to an independent label like Merge or Sub Pop or something like that, but this is an independent artist, but this is not signed to a record label. So yeah, this is kind of, the thing where things are a little cheaper without a record label, because, obviously record labels can be, record labels are kind of the things that you kind of have to cope with, how record labels kind of tend to fight over each other, and you kind of have to cope with the fact that when, record labels do cause you to pay a lot of money, probably more than what you're used to. Because obviously, when you get older, you have some money to pay, but obviously this one seems a little cheaper because this is not on a record label, because this is independent. But anyway, here's the cover. Really like this cover. Kind of looks like a little puppet on there. Spine and the back. And side one has this one is for you. Knight in armor, feeling my way in the dark, sleeping in the guest room, and mushroom clouds. And side 2 has it has made all the difference. The man who finally decides to start, right all along, cry harder and over. So yeah, this is the Beanstalk Library's second album. It's their first in 6 years since their critically acclaimed debut released in 2007. Called America at Night. Anyway, here's the inside of it, and Brian Pagel, one of the members of this band, one of the guitar players and singers of this group, sent me a copy of this album. and I got to talk to him a little bit, and, great guy, obviously, great guitar player. Inside, there's the liner notes and everything, the current lineup of the band, as well as additional musicians, along with TBL, Illuminite, or something like that. There's the CD itself, and there's like a thank you note in there. And it shows you where their website is, in which the Beanstalk Library's website, it's not really as much of a website as it is just kind of their music available on Bandcamp. But anyway, this is the view from here. So now I'm going to talk about the music on here. In case you don't know what Beanstalk Library sound like, they sound kind of like a mix of like some sort of, lyrically it kind of is kind of folky sort of, because there are lyrics about like tragedies and all that stuff. And musically it's a little more like a jam band kind of thing. I mean, there's guitar, there's B3 organ, there's piano, bass, drums, and then they mix in lots of folky kind of instruments, mixing in some violin and things like that too. This album, it kind of makes sense that it took like Beanstalk Library like a few years or something for them to put out a new album, because this one was recorded, many of the songs were recorded during different sessions. So it totally makes sense that this probably took a few years just to get it out there. So the first track on here is called "This One Is For You," and this is a song that kind of opens the album with kind of stripped down, like there's no drums or really no bass either. But it starts out Ryan Walker with an acoustic guitar. And then eventually more instruments come in, like there's this chord organ that comes in that really, kind of colors the tune. And then after that, there's like a Fender Rhodes piano solo, which sounds really nice on here. And this is kind of the song about how, the old days are over, and, there's no need to turn back aloud. And Andy Ziff, who is part of the Cowards Choir, which Ryan Walker is also in when he plays bass, sings harmony on this one. So yeah, great to have, local DC musician Andy Ziff on here, because, he's a great guy too. And then towards the end, there's like harmonies, there's like some layered harmonies, at the end. So yeah, really just a beautiful track. And a great way to open the album, because it just sounds really inviting. And then things get a little more rock-oriented once you get to the second song on this album, Knight in Armor, which has, like, just some, it's got, straight up, noisy guitars, amazing drums and bass. And then in the background, I hear, like, a mandolin or something like that, which is kind of not normal for a rock song, but it shows Beanstalk Library likes to make things original by just putting in a mandolin in there. Because, what's wrong with a mandolin sometimes? What's wrong with a mandolin sometimes? The song, it's just, straight up rockin', the Beanstalk Library are really good at doing kind of these songs that are about tragedies, that are a little more kind of, which, sound like they could be a folk song lyrically, but it's really a jam band song. It's really jam band, really. It's kind of like jam folk, I would describe it a little bit, because lyrics are kind of like folk music. Music's kind of like a jam band, sort of, kind of like OAR or Dave Matthews or something like that. Like, they kind of have that kind of influence in their sound, a little bit. The song "Feeling My Way in the Dark" is one of the lead tracks off of the album. This was actually released as a 7-inch single back in May of 2012, with a song I don't remember that's, like, on the B-side. which makes sense because this song was actually recorded during a different session. Because what's interesting is how bands take their time on albums. They don't just spend 3 months making it. All they do, what they do instead is they just take their time on it and really try to get the songs right and try to make an album that everyone's gonna have positive feelings about. I really love the organ. I really love the organ work on here. Some great guitar work on this song too. Especially at the end where Brian Pagels does this. Especially at the end where Brian Pagels, makes all this amazing noise with the guitar, and by the end there's and by the end it kind of sounds a little weird, like it sounds as if the amps are on fire or something like that. At the end it kind of sounds like an amp burning down or something like that. And it's a song about how sometimes we just kind of feel our way on the dark side rather than the light side, when we should just feel our way on the light side. So yeah, it's it's kind of a song about how sometimes we just got nowhere to go, nowhere to see except for the dark, which can sound really depressing if you looked at it alone, but once you put jam band to it, it doesn't sound very depressing at all. There are some pretty depressing ballads out there, especially if you look at the lyrics extremely carefully. Ballads can be kind of depressing since these lyrics are kind of paired with jam band, so this is kind of a song that kind of sees the light a little bit, since it's not really like a melancholy ballad, really. But, I can connect to some of the lyrics that Ryan Walker writes, so kudos for him for making lyrics I can connect to. Track 4 is called "Sleeping in the Guest Room," and this is one of the other lead tracks off of the album. And this is a song about how people just kind of tend to lay low and just want to sleep in a guest room in a hotel or something like that. I kind of imagine, when I listen to the lyrics, I kind of imagine this random, person that just walks into, a guest room in, some old hotel or something, gets on the table, and then sleeps there. After having, several adult beverages or something like that. That's what I kind of picture when I listen to the lyrics a little bit, and when I read the title a little bit. When you read the title, you kind of think to yourself, is that song going to be good, or is it going to be cheesy? But when you listen to it, you realize it's not that bad at all, because these are lyrics that are kind of about, melancholy feelings, and, trying really hard to throw thoughts aside and all that. So these lyrics especially connect to me during my adolescence. That's for sure. And it's mostly driven by acoustic guitars, a 60s-esque kind of organ, and then in the middle of it there's this Beatles-esque 12-string electric guitar solo, and then also in there's some trumpets coming in towards the end of it, which, I think the trumpets really work in there, those horn arrangements, which Ryan Walker wrote those horn parts himself. In fact, he did play saxophone on this record. And he wrote all the horn parts, which, is not normal for most people, so it's pretty cool that, although I kind of hear what Ryan Walker's kind of an amateur saxophonist, sort of. It's pretty cool that, he's one of those people who can do just that on a record. Track number 5 is called "Mushroom Clouds," and this is probably my favorite song on the record. It's a long, almost 7-minute track. It starts out kind of like as a nice little piano ballad, and then slowly coming in there's the guitar, the organ, the bass, the drums, and then there's a clavinet that I'm hearing too, as well as some trumpets. And then by the middle, the song kind of changes a little bit, so you kind of expect it to be kind of a long ballad the whole time, but then eventually there's this jam that comes in, with just, Brian just doing this weird little improvisation on the guitar that just sounds awesome. And then there's the shrieking organ that, comes in, and they played this song at the Hamilton, and they played it as a shout out to me, actually, which I applaud them for that, because I applaud them for that. Like, they definitely need to be applauded for that, because they totally read my mind that this is like my favorite song on the whole record, and that I just love the jam in the middle of it, because I'm a jam band kind of person. Jam bands, I love how Beanstalk Library is one of those bands that's just great at improvising on stage and trying to, break out a long jam without boring the listener or anything like that. Because sometimes when a song is long, it can bore the listener a little bit if there's not really anything to it. But if there's jamming in it, people can really enjoy, the long jams. So yeah, this is kind of a song, but after the long jam, it kind of turns back into kind of the slow piano ballad that it is at the beginning. That the song is at the beginning. Track number 6 is called "It Has Made All the Difference," and I'll tell you this: not only is this one of my favorites on the whole record, but my mom really likes this one too. It's kind of a religious kind of song, and it's got this weird little intro with this, this guitar that sounds like a punk rock guitar played very steadily on here. And then coming in, there's droning guitar and Ryan Walker's voice. And then coming in, there's the piano, the beautiful chorus, as well as some pedal steel and some string arrangements, and really just a well done song. Like, it starts out kind of quiet in the beginning, but towards the middle of it, it breaks out into a jam a little bit. So this is like another long track because it's like 6 minutes long. But it really shows Beanstalk Library is one of those bands that can make long songs and not even, bore their listener or make them want to fall asleep listening to it or anything like that. Because sometimes long songs, if it's like dragging, it can put you to sleep a little bit. But Beanstalk Library, they do long songs, but they don't put you to sleep with them. At all. Track number 7 is called "The Man Who Finally Decides to Start," and this is a song about, how sometimes there's always that person that makes you want to say, nothing can pull out your heart like the man who finally decides to start. And it's kind of a basic kind of honky-tonk bar jam a little bit. Honky-tonk barroom jam a little bit with the piano, with the saloon piano and, the guitars. It's kind of a fun, kind of boozy rocker. Kind of just a fun, boozy rocker. That's for sure, yeah. Track number 8 is called "Right All Along." Just kind of a song about how sometimes, we are just right about being, depressed, being fearful of something all along. We were just, sometimes we're kind of right about that all along, and it's not just a lie at all. And this one's kind of a more alt-country kind of influenced song with the violin, the tone of the guitars. And then coming in, there's some trumpets, which isn't typically normal for an alt-country song, but it totally works in here. Track number 9 is the song "Cry Harder," and this is a song that's like the longest on the whole record. It's 7 minutes long, and I love the way it kind of builds up. The first thing you hear is just Ryan Walker's voice, no instruments, singing the first few lyrics about this maiden named Jenny Malone, who's just wanting to, you know, feel so alive. And then coming in there's the guitar, and then eventually the piano, the bass, the drums, the pedal steel, and everything comes in. And then it gets some violin and some horns and a banjo. So this is really kind of a song that kind of is Beanstalk Library trying to do maybe a little bit of everything on this one. Which I think totally makes sense here, that they tried to do a little bit of everything on here. Because, you know, when you make an album that just sounds so unique, one of the most unique things you can do is make the longest song on the album the most exciting recording, because you can pretty much do anything you want with it. Like, you know, Beanstalk Library makes this blend of instruments sound so great without anything overpowering each other. It's not like a mess of instruments at all. It's not like a mess of instruments or anything like that. It all totally works. And the chorus totally sticks out to me. It's like, you know, giving you these words of advice a little bit. Cry harder, laugh louder, and scream till your guts fly out on the floor. Like those lyrics totally, you know, stick out to me. Like, you know, people can. There are some great songwriters out there that can slay you with lyrics that, you know, you just didn't see coming. The closing track is called Over. This is track number 10 on the record. This is a pretty good song. I have heard about like half of it or so. I haven't heard this song all the way through, so, you know, I am reviewing this album, and I haven't heard it all the way through, really, because I haven't heard this song all the way through. But you know, I just wanted, basically what I wanted to do here was just review, review an artist, basically, and persuade people to check out that artist, especially because not a lot of people are aware of Beanstalk Library just yet, but hopefully more people will when they watch this video, because they're just great. I highly recommend you check out their albums, but I definitely strongly recommend you check them out live when they're in your area, like whether you're in DC or if you're somewhere farther, if you're somewhere farther, like if they're playing in wherever you are, if they're playing in your area, I definitely recommend checking them out live, because seeing them live was absolutely great at the Hamilton. And I got this t-shirt at the merch table, Beanstalk Library shirt. It's green and has the red Beanstalk Library logo on it. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out The View from Here and America at Night too, because there's some good stuff on there too. And but I especially recommend checking them out live, because they're one of those bands that's great on their records, but even better when they're on like stage playing songs in front of an audience. So yeah, Beanstalk Library is a great band, and, you know, I'll tell you, Beanstalk Library, you rocked it, and I can't wait to see you guys again. So that's my review of the Beanstalk Library's The View from Here, and I'll see you for episode 29 when I come back, in which I'm going to review the Arctic Monkeys album, AM. So stay tuned for that, won't you?